settle in now and let the room around you become quiet. Tonight, we are going high above a world that has frozen into silence. Far below, the cities have disappeared under pale fields of ice. Roads have become white lines beneath drifting snow. Valleys have filled with slow-moving glaciers. The old weather has changed, the old signals have faded, and the world people once knew has become distant, cold, and still. But high on a granite peak, above the buried roads and the frozen valleys, an old observatory remains. Its copper dome sits against the black sky like a warm ember at the edge of the world. Its walls are thick. Its seals are heavy. Its inner rooms still breathe with stored heat from deep under the mountain. Inside, brass dials glow softly. Amber panels hum beneath the frost, and the great telescope turns with a slow mechanical patience, tracking the last falling lights above the earth. Before we begin, if you enjoy quiet sleep stories like this, you can subscribe for more calm journeys, peaceful survival stories, and relaxing bedtime narration. You can also leave a comment and tell us where you are listening from, what time it is where you are, and what kind of safe place you would like to hear about next. It is always wonderful to see how far these stories travel around the world. Now, get comfortable, let the room around you grow quiet, and allow the story to begin. The mountain has been frozen for years. No one knows exactly when the freeze became permanent. At first, it was another season people expected to pass. A winter that arrived early. A storm system that refused to break. Temperatures that stayed low week after week, then month after month, then year after year, until the maps began to mean less than the ice itself. The lower towns were the first to vanish. Roofs sank under snow. Power lines snapped and disappeared beneath drifts. Rivers stopped moving at the surface and became buried veins of dark water under blue ice. Then, the roads up the mountain closed one by one, not because anyone ordered them closed, but because the snow took them and did not give them back. The observatory was different. It had been built for isolation long before the world needed such things. It stood above the cloud line, anchored into granite, designed to hold against winter winds and long periods without supply. Its builders had made it strong, then the last caretakers had made it stronger. They sealed the lower doors, reinforced the entry tunnels, repaired the geothermal lines, filled the storerooms, insulated the sleeping quarters, and turned the place from a research station into a refuge. Now, only one observer remains. You, not because you plan to be the last. No one plans a life around becoming the final witness to a frozen world. It happened slowly, the way most endings do. The team grew smaller. The messages grew less frequent. The supply flights stopped. The radio bands filled with static, then with silence. The last voices from below became short, practical, tired, and kind. Then they were gone. The observatory continued. The dome still turned. The heating system still breathed. The instruments still watched the thinning atmosphere. The old telescope, built of steel, brass, glass, and stubborn engineering, still found the sky through its narrow slit. And so you stayed, not in panic, not in despair. You stayed because the mountains still held, because the observatory was warm, because the sky was still there, because the machines still needed simple care, because every evening, when the winds settled enough for the dome to open, the stars returned with a clarity that made the frozen world below feel less like an ending and more like a silence beneath something vast. Tonight begins outside. You have been checking the outer path before the long dark hours. The path is short now, only a cleared line between the emergency shelter and the main entrance, bordered on both sides by snow walls hardened into blue-white ridges. Beyond those walls, the mountain falls away into darkness. There are no village lights below, no headlights moving through valleys, no distant aircraft, no roads, only the pale spread of glaciers under the stars. The wind cuts across the peak. It moves over the granite in long, dry waves, carrying ice crystals that tick against your visor. The cold is so complete, it feels almost solid. It presses into the gloves. It stiffens the outer layer of the coat. It turns each breath into a brief white cloud that disappears behind you before you take the next. You move slowly because the mountain asks for care. One step over packed snow, one step beside the guide rail, one hand on the frozen cable that leads back to the entrance. The observatory is only a short distance away, but in weather like this, even a short distance matters. The copper dome rises ahead, dark and rounded against the sky, its surface dulled by frost, except where the wind has polished it to a faint metallic glow. The entrance waits at the base of the structure, a heavy outer door set into reinforced stone, a small amber light above it, a control panel half covered in frost. You brush the panel clear with the back of your glove and press your palm to the reader. For a moment, nothing happens except the wind moving around you. Then the old lock recognizes you. A low vibration passes through the door. The seal releases. Warmth does not rush out. The observatory is too careful for that. The door opens only wide enough to let you step into the first chamber, then closes behind you with a slow hydraulic sigh. The wind disappears at once, cut off so completely that the silence inside feels almost loud. You stand in the airlock and wait. The outer chamber is dim, lit by amber strips along the floor. Frost clings to your sleeves. Ice crystals melt slowly on the face shield. A fan begins overhead, steady and low, pulling the outside cold away from you. The pressure equalizes with a soft click somewhere in the wall. The second door opens. Inside, the observatory breathes warm air around you. Not hot, never hot. Heat is too precious to waste, but warm enough, human enough. The kind of warmth that reaches the face first, then the hands, then the chest, telling the body that it has crossed from exposure into shelter. You remove your gloves in the entry room, one finger at a time. You hang the outer coat on the drying rack, where other coats once hung beside it. You place the ice axe in its clip. You set the mask on the shelf. Small actions, repeated every night, create the difference between surviving and drifting. The routine is not dramatic. That is why it works. The entry room leads into the lower corridor. Copper pipes run along the walls, warm to the touch beneath layers of insulation. The floor vibrates faintly with geothermal pumps far below. Somewhere deeper in the building, gears turn in their housing, slow and regular, part of the telescope clockwork that never fully sleeps. Click, pause, click, a soft rotation, a hum through the bones of the observatory. Outside, the mountain wind could strip warmth from skin in minutes. Inside, the old machines keep time. The difference between those two worlds is only a few doors, a few seals, a few systems maintained with patience. You walk toward the dome. Corridor rises gently, following the curve of the structure. On the walls are framed star charts from earlier decades, their paper yellowed at the edges. Some show skis photographed before the freeze, before the satellites began to fail, before the atmosphere thinned enough to make the stars look close and sharp and almost too bright. You pass them without stopping, but their presence is comforting. Proof that others once stood here looking upward, not because the world was ending, but because the sky was beautiful. At the top of the corridor, the control room glows. Amber lights, brass switches, black screens with green text, a desk with handwritten logs stacked neatly under a glass weight, a radio panel gone quiet, a kettle resting on a small heater, a wool blanket folded over the back of the chair. Beyond the control room, the dome opens upward into shadow. The telescope stands in the center, enormous and calm. It is older than the newest instruments and more reliable than most of them. Its body is dark metal. Its joints are polished by use. Its brass dials catch the amber light. Frost has formed along the outer edge of the observation slit, where the sky enters the room as a narrow band of black. The telescope is already awake. Its tracking motor turns almost imperceptibly, following coordinates entered hours earlier. You can hear the faint rhythm of it when you stand still. Whir, click, a pause, whir, another small adjustment. The sound is not like a machine in a factory. It is slower, more careful, closer to breathing than working. In the long isolation of the peak, the sound has become company. You cross the room and place your hand on the railing around the telescope platform. The metal is warm from the internal circulation lines. That warmth surprises you every time, even now. An instrument pointed into absolute cold, held alive by hidden heat. Above, the slit in the dome is still closed. You check the outside readings first. Wind speed falling. Temperature far below survival. Ice load acceptable. Dome motor within tolerance. Inner humidity stable. Atmospheric scatter low. Satellite debris forecast active in 3 bands. The old system gives the information in quiet numbers. No alarms, no urgency, only conditions. You pour tea before opening the sky. The kettle has been waiting on the low heater. You fill the cup and hold it with both hands. Steam rises into the amber light. The smell is simple: black tea, a little dried mint, a little metal from the old cup. You take a slow sip and feel the warmth settle behind the ribs. The mountain groans once beneath the observatory. A deep sound, slow and distant, more felt than heard. You pause with the cup in your hands. Then the sound passes. Glacial movement, foundations settling, ice shifting against stone. The mountain has made such sounds for years. At first, they kept you awake. Now they remind you that the observatory is not floating in emptiness. It is rooted in granite, held against the cold by weight, design, and time. You set the tea beside the console and wake the dome. A switch lifts under your fingers. Somewhere above, a motor engages. The copper shell begins to rotate. The sound moves around the room in a slow circle. Metal on hidden bearings, the old dome finding its position under the stars. Then the slit opens. Not quickly. The observatory never does anything quickly when cold is involved. The shutters part with a low mechanical pull, and the black sky appears between them. No cloud, no moon, only stars. The sight fills the narrow opening, and for a moment the room seems to become very small around you. This is the geometry of the void. Not an empty void, not nothingness, but a vastness so complete that human things become precious by contrast. The amber panels, the warm cup, the wool blanket, the brass dials, the chair worn smooth by use, the faint glow of the heater near the floor. Each small light in the room stands against a darkness that extends beyond weather, beyond history, beyond the frozen world below. You dim the control room lamps. The stars sharpen. On the console, a row of tiny indicators flickers in soft green and orange. The equipment seems almost fragile under that sky, like a handful of fireflies trying to answer the universe. Yet it is enough. It has always been enough. A lens, a mirror, a motor, a dial, a person watching. You begin the evening observations. The first target is not a star. It is an object that used to carry voices, a communications satellite, decommissioned long after anyone could retrieve it, losing orbit slowly over the frozen earth. The system has been tracking its decay for weeks. Tonight, according to the remaining model, it will enter the upper atmosphere and burn. You enter the final coordinates. The telescope responds. Its great body pivots with a low, smooth motion, not hurried, not dramatic. The tracking mechanism finds the predicted arc, corrects, waits, corrects again. Through the eyepiece monitor, the sky appears magnified. Black field, white points, faint lines from ice crystals at the edge of the slit, and then a small moving light. There it is, a tiny human-made thing, brighter for a moment than the stars behind it, crossing the frame with silent determination. You do not feel sadness exactly. Sadness belonged to earlier years, when each falling signal still felt like a door closing. Tonight, the feeling is quieter. The satellite was built, launched, used, abandoned by necessity, and now the sky is taking it back in fire. There is something almost peaceful in the completion of its path. The light grows stronger, then it begins to break. A pale streak, a second flare, a small fan of sparks invisible to anyone below, because below is ice and darkness and buried valleys. But here, in the observatory, above the frozen weather, you watch it fall. The telescope follows. Whir, click, a small correction. Whir, the object brightens again, then thins into a line, then becomes several points, then nothing. The monitor returns to stars. You write the time in the logbook, not because anyone may read it soon. Perhaps no one will. But records are a form of care. They say that something happened and someone noticed. Even at the edge of the frozen world, noticing still matters. Another deep sound passes through the mountain. This one lasts longer. The cup trembles slightly on the console. A pencil rolls half an inch, stops against the logbook, and rests. You listen until the sound fades into the lower stone. The foundation holds. Outside, the glaciers continue their slow work. They grind through valleys that once held roads. They lean against old towns and press roofs into silence. They move with a patience that makes human endings seem brief. The world below is not violent now. That stage has passed. It is simply heavy, white, slow, and beyond argument. Inside, you pull the wool blanket around your shoulders. The blanket is old and dense, patched near one corner. It smells faintly of cedar storage and tea. You sit in the observer's chair and let its weight settle over you. The warmth of it is immediate and deeply human. After looking at the sky for too long, after watching machines fall out of orbit, after listening to ice move under the mountain, a blanket is not a small thing. It is civilization, reduced to kindness. Wool heat, a cup, a chair, a room that holds. You take another sip of tea. The second target rises into view, not falling, not dying. A real star this time, old and distant, its light arriving from a time before the freeze, before the observatory became a refuge, before you were born. The telescope turns toward it with the same care it gave the satellite. The machinery does not distinguish between human debris and ancient fire. It follows the sky. That steadiness comforts you. The room settles into its nightly rhythm. The dome makes one small adjustment every few minutes. The telescope pivots almost invisibly. The heater clicks off, then on again. The pressure seals breathe. The old clock above the panel moves its hands with a faint sound. Ice taps occasionally against the outer shell when the wind lifts loose crystals from the roof. The story of the night begins to lose its edges, not because nothing is happening, because everything is happening slowly enough to become peaceful. You check the water system before the next observation. The reservoir level is stable. The melt line from the inner condenser is clear. The emergency tanks remain sealed. You note the numbers without worry. The observatory has survived because worry became routine, and routine became care. You do not need to feel fear every time you check a gauge. You only need to check it. A safe place is built from quiet repetitions. Doors sealed, heat stable, water counted, food stored, signals scanned, sky watched, body warmed, sleep protected. The thoughts pass through you like steps in an old pattern, not a list to recite, but a rhythm the body knows. Each one has its place. Each one keeps the night simple. You rise and walk the inner balcony around the dome. From the balcony, the telescope looks like a sleeping animal made of metal and glass. Its long barrel points through the slit, following something too distant for the unaided eye. The copper walls curve around it, warm in color, even under low light. The floor below glows amber. Above, the sky remains black and full of stars. You stop at the frost window. It is a narrow, reinforced pane set into the dome wall, used for direct viewing when the shutters are closed. Frost has grown along its edges in feathered patterns. Through the clear center, you can see the ridge outside, the guide rail, the snow walls, and beyond them the fall of the mountain into darkness. Nothing moves below. No lights, no smoke, no sound you can hear through the glass. Only the vast pale slopes under the stars, descending into a world that has gone quiet. For a moment, the isolation is complete. You are the last observer on the peak, perhaps the last observer anywhere. The thought no longer arrives sharply. It comes like weather seen from far away. You acknowledge it. You do not invite it to sit too close. Loneliness can be dangerous if given the center of the room. Here, it is kept near the window, where the cold belongs. You turn back toward the warmth. The telescope clicks softly. The tea waits. The chair waits. The room is still here. This is how you survive long solitude, by returning attention to what is present and kind. A warm cup, a working seal, a steady machine, a blanket on the shoulders, a star in the eyepiece. You sit again and begin the next pass. More satellites fall tonight. They do not fall all at once. Nothing in the sky cares for drama. One appears as a pale moving point near the horizon. Another enters higher, brightens, and disappears before the telescope can fully center it. A third breaks slowly enough that the tracking system follows its fragments until they vanish like sparks blown out by a breath. Each descent is silent. That silence matters. Below, in the old world, falling things made noise. Sirens, engines, voices, breaking glass, alerts, warnings. Here, at the top of the frozen mountain, Endings cross the sky without sound. The observatory watches them with clockwork patience. You write them down. The tea cools. The blanket grows warmer around you. Hour by hour, the room becomes more intimate. The great cosmic scale does not make the human scale meaningless. It makes it tender. Against the depth of space, the smallness of the room becomes a gift. The chair fits one body. The cup warms two hands. The panel lights are just bright enough. The telescope makes only the movement required. Nothing is wasted. You think of the people who built the observatory. They designed the dome for storms they could imagine, not for the frozen end of the lower world. They chose copper because it lasted. They chose granite because it held. They buried heat lines deep into the mountain and bolted the structure into stone. They could not know that one day, long after their plans, someone would sit here wrapped in wool, listening to the telescope follow the last machines through the upper air. But their care reached you anyway. This thought is comforting. Care can travel farther than intention. You run your hand along the edge of the console, feeling tiny scratches in the metal. Generations of observers left marks here. Rings, tools, hurried notes, cold hands, warm cups, the ordinary friction of work. The surface is not pristine. It is better than pristine. It has been used. A pristine refuge is an idea. A used refuge is a home. The observatory has become a home in strange circumstances. The lower storage room holds sacks of grain, tins, dried fruit, spare filters, coils of cable, and the seed box no one has opened in years, because there is nowhere outside to plant anything now. The sleeping room has 2 bunks, though only one is used. The kitchen has a small stove, 3 chipped bowls, a row of cups, and a calendar still turned to a month from long ago. The maintenance bay has tools arranged by size, because order saves energy. The library alcove holds manuals, star catalogs, old novels, and notebooks filled with weather, dreams, repairs, and recipes adjusted for limited supplies. You have made the place livable not by changing its purpose, but by widening it. It is still an observatory. It is also shelter, workshop, kitchen, weather station, bedroom, lookout, small island of warmth above a frozen sea. The dome shifts again. The mechanical sound gathers your attention back into the present. Whir, click. The telescope turns toward the next coordinate. Outside, the wind has dropped. The silence beyond the slit becomes deeper. Without wind, the stars seem even more fixed. The atmosphere is thin tonight, colder than glass, and the sky appears almost close enough to touch. You lean back in the chair. The blanket reaches from shoulders to knees. The cup rests between both hands. The control room lights are low. The telescope continues its slow work. The falling satellites have nearly finished their pass. There is one more beacon predicted before the long quiet. You could stand, sharpen the focus, note every second. But the system is aligned. The log is ready. The room is stable. For the first time all evening, you allow yourself to simply watch. The beacon enters the monitor as a faint point near the edge of the field. At first it looks like any other moving light. Then it brightens. The telescope adjusts. The glow becomes stronger, a small white ember moving across blackness. You imagine it as it once was, panels extended, circuits alive, carrying weather data, voices, coordinates, images of storms over oceans. Now it is only metal meeting atmosphere. The point stretches into a line. The line becomes flame. For a few seconds, the dead machine shines with everything it has left. Then it opens into fragments, each one fading at a slightly different pace until the sky is only stars again. You write the time. The pencil moves softly over paper. No one answers from below. No one needs to. The record is enough. The room exhales. Or perhaps you do. It is hard to tell in the quiet. The observing work is finished for the night. You close the active tracking file, dim the panels another step, and set the telescope to its slow holding pattern. It will remain pointed toward a safe region of sky until the dome closes. The motors settle into a lower rhythm. The room becomes less like a workplace and more like a sleeping chamber for instruments. You rise and begin the closing routine. Not the full shutdown. Never that, unless weather demands it. Only the night rest sequence. Secure the logbook. Cover the unused monitor. Check the heater. Confirm pressure. Confirm seals. Confirm dome rotation lock. Confirm that the outer cameras are still iced but functioning. Confirm that the lower corridors are warm enough. Each confirmation is a small reassurance. The world below may be beyond repair, but this place still answers. The shutters begin to close. The opening in the dome narrows slowly. The sky becomes a band, then a slit, then a dark line, then copper. The stars are not gone. They are only outside again. The telescope stops. For a moment, the absence of its motion feels new. Then the lower hum of the observatory fills the space. Heat in the walls, air through vents, distant pumps, a soft electrical murmur, the mountain beneath, the room breathing. You carry the cup and blanket down from the platform into the smaller rest chamber beside the control room. This chamber was once used for short naps during long observation nights. Now, it is the place you sleep when storms are too strong to return to the lower quarters. Tonight, with the sky clear and the mountain quiet, you choose it anyway. It is warm. A narrow bed is built into the wall. A small round window shows only frost and darkness. A shelf holds 2 books, a spare lamp, a tin of tea, and a photograph of the observatory in summer from a time before your own. In the photograph, the mountain is bare granite, and the dome shines bright copper under a blue sky. The sight is almost impossible to believe now, but it does not hurt. It feels like another star, light from a world that existed, arriving late. You fold the blanket at the end of the bed. Then unfold it again and place it over yourself. The room is small enough to feel safe. After the dome, after the sky, after the frozen world below, the smallness is welcome. The walls hold warmth close. The bed holds the body. The little window holds only darkness, not a demand to look farther. You leave the door slightly open so the observatory sounds can enter. The faint hum, the occasional click, the low movement of air. No wind now, no alarms, no voices from the radio. Only systems that continue because you have cared for them and because others cared for them before you. You lie back. The body notices rest before the mind does. The legs soften first, relieved not to brace against ice. The hands unclench after hours of controls, rails, cups, and tools. The shoulders lower into the bed. The face warms in the steady air. Your breathing slows because the room itself is slow. Outside, the frozen mountain keeps its distance. The glaciers move too slowly to matter tonight. The buried cities remain buried. The valleys remain white and still. The fallen satellites are ash somewhere far below the upper air. The stars continue beyond the closed dome. Inside there is enough warmth, enough water, enough tea for morning, enough power in the geothermal lines, enough silence, enough shelter, enough night. The thought settles through you like another blanket. Enough. You do not need to solve the world before sleeping. You do not need to remember every loss. You do not need to keep watch with your whole body. The observatory can keep watch. The mountain can hold the observatory. The stars can watch the mountain. And you can rest. The lights dim one step automatically. The small chamber becomes amber and shadow. The brass edge of the lamp glows faintly. The frost on the window catches a little light and turns into delicate lines, like feathers, like maps, like rivers that no longer move below. You follow one line of frost with your eyes until it disappears into darkness. Then you let your eyes close. The observatory continues around you. A gentle hum in the walls, a soft click from a relay, air moving through vents. Far below, perhaps, the ice shifts again, but the sound is too deep and distant to reach you clearly. It becomes part of the bed, part of the mountain, part of the quiet. Before lying down fully, you sit for a while with the blanket around your shoulders and the door open to the control room. This is not work now. It is the quiet habit of someone who has learned to let a place settle before sleep. The observatory has its own evening language, and after years on the peak, you know each part of it. The warmer pipe in the wall ticks once after the heater cycle changes. The old relay beside the console gives a faint answer. The air moving through the upper vent shifts when the dome skin cools beneath the night outside. None of these sounds are alarms. They are the small, familiar movements of shelter. You listen until the room feels known again. The world outside may have become too large, too cold, too distant to understand completely. But this room is understandable. The blanket has weight. The cup has warmth. The lamp has a low amber circle. The book on the shelf has a folded page near the middle. The door has a latch. The floor has a slight slope you can feel when you walk in socks. The window has frost at the corners and clear glass at the center. A person can live inside such details. Not forever, perhaps, but tonight is enough. You rise once more slowly and step back into the control room. The telescope rests under the closed dome, its long body angled upward as if dreaming of the sky it can no longer see. The instruments have dimmed to their night settings. The logbook sits closed on the desk, the pencil placed across it. The cooled tea leaves a faint ring inside the cup. You move through the space without switching on brighter lights. Your hands know where things are. The small stove in the side alcove still holds a little heat. You set the cup beside it for morning. The supply cabinet closes with a soft wooden sound. You take one dried apple slice from the jar, not because you are hungry, but because sweetness before sleep has become one of the rituals that makes the observatory feel less like a station and more like a home. The apple is firm and quiet between your teeth. It tastes faintly of summer, which now feels almost imaginary. Once orchards grew in the lower valleys. You saw them only in photographs after arriving here. Rows of trees climbing slopes below villages, blossoms in spring, green leaves in summer, fruit in autumn. Now those valleys are sealed under the white mass of ice. But the apple slice remains, carried upward years ago, dried, stored, saved, and shared with this night. You do not let the thought become sorrow. You let it become gratitude. The world that was left small gifts behind. A jar on a shelf, a blanket, a brass dial still turning, a dome that closes properly, a path marked with a guide rail, a room designed by people who believed someone might need to be warm here. You turn toward the narrow window near the console. The frost has changed shape since you last looked. Thin lines have grown inward like pale ferns. Between them, the clear center shows the ridge outside. The guide rail is half buried again. Wind has begun moving loose snow across the path, smoothing your footprints from earlier. By morning, the mountain will have erased almost all evidence that anyone crossed there tonight. This, too, is calming in a strange way. The mountain does not keep every mark. It allows effort to disappear once it has served its purpose. You walked the path. You came inside. The doors sealed. The work finished. The footprint does not need to remain in order for the journey to have mattered. A small chime sounds from the console. Not an alarm. A scheduled reminder. The dome temperature has reached its night balance. The copper skin and inner air have adjusted to one another. The system asks only for acknowledgement. You press the key. The chime stops. The room returns to its low hum. For a moment, you imagine the observatory from outside. A dark mountain under a vast black sky. snow blown flat along the ridge, glaciers in the valleys like pale sleeping seas, and at the very top, the copper dome, sealed and warm, with one or two amber windows, no brighter than stars fallen onto stone. From a distance, no one would know the details inside. No one would see the blanket, the cup, the logbook, the telescope at rest. But the details are there. Hidden warmth is still warmth. A safe place does not have to announce itself to the frozen world. It only has to hold. You step into the lower corridor for the last check of the night. The corridor curves away from the dome and descends toward the living quarters. You do not go far, only to the junction where the heat pipes meet and the emergency panel shows its steady row of lights. The metal under your palm is warm. The old pump behind the wall moves with a deep, slow rhythm, pulling heat from far below the granite, from places the ice cannot reach. That hidden heat is the reason the observatory still lives. Not firewood, which would have vanished long ago. Not fuel, which would have run out. Not sunlight, which comes weekly through storm and frost. Deep under the mountain, the earth still gives warmth, and the builders learned how to borrow just enough of it. Just enough. Those words have become another principle of survival. Enough heat to keep the pipes clear. Enough light to work by. Enough food for the measured days. Enough watching to understand the sky. Enough rest to remain gentle with yourself. Enough memory to stay human, but not so much that memory becomes a storm. You stand there with your palm on the warm pipe until the rhythm of the pump feels like a pulse. Then you return to the small chamber. The bed looks more inviting now. The air is softer. The amber line beneath the door seems dimmer. Outside the window, frost has nearly closed the clear patch, leaving only a small dark oval through which one star is visible. It trembles slightly because the glass is cold and the air inside is warm. One star is enough. You sit on the bed and take off the heavy socks, replacing them with the softer pair kept under the blanket. Another ritual. Another small kindness repeated often enough to become part of the architecture of the night. The body notices these things. It trusts them. It learns that after the socks, after the water, after the lamp is lowered, sleep is allowed. You drink a little water. You place the cup where your hand can find it in the dark. You lower the lamp until the room becomes the color of old honey. Then you lie down again, this time with the decision made. No more checks. No more looking outside. No more listening for work. The observatory has crossed into its sleeping state, and you cross with it. Now let the story become softer. There is nowhere else to go tonight. No more path across the ice. No more airlock. No more coordinates. No more falling beacons. No more sky to record. The work is done. The dome is closed. The telescope is still. The room is warm. Breathe in slowly. Warm air. Breathe out. Frozen world far below. Breathe in. The blanket heavy and safe. Breathe out. Nothing more required. If thoughts come, let them appear like small lights in the upper atmosphere. They can brighten for a moment, then soften, then vanish. A worry can become a falling satellite, burning away without sound. A memory can become a star beyond the dome, present but distant. A plan for tomorrow can rest inside the logbook, closed until morning. You are inside the copper sanctuary now. The seals are holding. The heat is steady. The telescope sleeps. The mountain is quiet enough. The sky is outside. The room is here. Let the body grow heavier. Feet warm under the blanket. Legs at rest after the frozen path. Hands open. Arms soft. Shoulders released. Jaw loose. Eyes resting. Breath slow. The observatory does not ask you to stay awake. It has stood through storms, through silence, through years of frost, through nights when the sky was hidden and nights when it opened completely. It can stand through this one too. The lights dim another step. Now the room is mostly shadow. Only a faint amber line beneath the door. Only a little glow from the panel outside. Only frost at the edge of the window. Only warmth near the bed. The mechanical sounds soften into one continuous lullaby. Hum, pause, click, air, warmth, stone, silence. Not a list now. One feeling. The feeling of being protected high above the frozen world. The glaciers below can continue their slow movement. The fallen machines can become dust. The stars can remain where they are. The mountain can hold its peak against the dark. Nothing needs to change before morning. Nothing needs to be watched with effort. The final observer can sleep. You can sleep. The dome rests above you like a closed eyelid of copper. The telescope points into memory. The room breathes. The blanket warms. The frost draws quiet shapes on the glass. And far beyond the sealed walls, beyond the ridge, beyond the frozen valleys and the buried roads, the sky remains wide and still. Rest now. The path is closed. The doors are sealed. The mountain is silent. The observatory is warm. The stars are watching. And there is nothing more you need to do tonight. The last awareness comes and goes gently. For a while, you are not fully asleep and not fully awake. You are only resting inside the sounds of the room. The hum in the wall becomes wider. The air through the vent becomes softer. The faint click from the relay becomes less like a sound and more like a point of light far away in the mind. Outside, the mountain remains cold beyond imagining, but it is no longer something you need to face. The path is not calling. The airlock is not opening. The wind cannot reach this bed. It moves around the copper dome and over the sealed doors, then passes into the dark without finding you. The observatory has done what it was built to do. It has taken the impossible cold and kept it outside. It has taken the endless sky and framed it for a while. It has taken the silence of the frozen world and turned it into a quiet room where a person can sleep. The thought fades before it finishes. Your breath becomes the nearest sound. Slow, warm, unforced. The room seems to breathe with you now. The walls expand in imagination, then settle. The blanket rises slightly, then lowers. The small star behind the frost disappears as your eyes remain closed, but the feeling of it stays somewhere above you, patient and kind. There may be more falling lights tomorrow night. There may be more entries in the logbook, more checks of heat and water, more careful steps through snow, more cups of tea beside the console. Those things can wait inside tomorrow. They do not belong to this hour. This hour belongs to rest. The final observer is not only an observer. The final observer is also a body that needs warmth, a mind that needs softness, a heart that needs permission to stop listening for danger. So the observatory gives permission in the only language it has. Steady heat, sealed doors, low light, old metal cooling slowly, the deep mountain holding below, the closed dome holding above. You let yourself be held between them, and slowly the frozen world becomes very far away. Not gone, only far enough, far below the ridge, far below the dome, far below the bed, the blanket, the little window, the quiet breath. The stars continue beyond the copper shell, but they no longer ask to be watched. They shine without needing witness. They have done this always. They will do it through the night. You can leave them to it. The room grows darker in your mind. The amber line under the door softens. The frost patterns become pale and formless. The hum becomes one smooth sound. The blanket becomes warmth without edges, and the mountain, ancient and frozen and silent, keeps the observatory lifted above the sleeping world. Rest now. There is no hurry left in the sky, no message waiting in the radio, no alarm in the panels, no movement at the door, only the safe, enclosed quiet of the copper dome, the gentle breathing of old machines, and the deep peace of a room that knows how to endure the cold. The observatory watches. The mountain holds. The stars remain. And you drift deeper, protected and warm, into sleep.